Today, we are going to be talking with Snowy Rodeo, and her work is so special. It allows people to align their mind, their body, and their soul while deepening their connection with intuition, themselves, and their truth. It is so cool, and I cannot wait to talk to you about all the things. But most importantly, you guys know this podcast is called Roots and Rebirth, and for a reason, but Snowy's lineage and her roots just truly show courage in her family and honors just this beautiful bloodline that she comes from and a calling that she's had since a very young age. So I am so excited to get talking and introduce you all to Snowy. Hey, Snowy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun. I want you to tell people what you do and how you got inspired to read tarot, teach yoga, and even use your spiritual gifts as a psychic medium. It's so good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much again. So, my name is Snowy, and I am a psychic medium based out of Austin, Texas. I've been in Austin for 7 years, originally from Dallas. So, I lived in Dallas for 10 years, collectively 17 years in Texas. And the divination tool that I use is tarot. So as a psychic medium, I am channeling in information through my guides and source. Lately, my mom has been one of my guides. She passed away in 2023. And she was also a psychic medium and fashion designer. So a lot of my roots do come from fashion and also the mediumship part. I was born in New Jersey, and when I was 4 years old, I started seeing spirits. This is always an awkward thing to talk about because my family was very religious and still is. We're Catholic. But my mother, her father, and her brother, they're from Cuba. So, I'm a Cuban American. And they all practiced in the divination. So some of them read tarot, some of them were like energy healers using Reiki and different types of modalities to naturally cure diseases and different types of things. So when I was four, I could remember this, and I was also constantly reminded how young of an age this really started. I remember being at my grandma's house and everybody was gathered around for Christmas, and I had grabbed a candle off of the table, which was lit. And I stood in the middle of the room and I said, "I have a message for you from grandma." And this was my grandmother that had passed away from my dad's side, which I never met. At that point, they were just like, "Where's this coming from? We haven't even told her that she doesn't have a grandma from, my mom's husband's side." So there was a lot of curiosity. It was almost like that energy was suppressed. I do have to be honest, because it was not until I was 8 and 9 years old that I started learning and developing the true skills. So I continued going to Catholic school in New Jersey. I got into some trouble because, as my mom would say, I was a hard kid. I was a little bit rebellious. Being with her fashion background, she was involved with Liz Claiborne. So my mom was one of the women who started designing menswear for women, which was really cool. I'm
So
seeing
cool. I
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm seeing that trend coming back. And so just going to school in uniform did not fit my vibe. So I was constantly getting in little troubles here and there. And we just made like a family unit decision to move to Florida. And that's when all of the experiences started coming into fruition. My parents were driving my uncle, who was only 5 years older than me, to Miami to meet up with his girlfriend. And driving from New Jersey to Miami is a long haul, to say the
Yeah.
least. I remember we stopped at like a Denny's, and there was this real estate magazine that had these beautiful homes. And at the time, we were all living at my grandma's house in New Jersey, and we felt like really cramped. It was technically like a 3-story house, a house with a basement, a top floor, and then the middle ground. And my mom just looked at my dad and said, "I really want this pink house with a pool. I think it would be great to raise our daughter. I'm the only child, and it's going to be wonderful." It was only 88,000 at the time in 1988. my dad was like, I don't see why not. So they both left their jobs and moved into this house in Florida. Well, the town is called Deltona, which is like a suburb of Casadega, which happens to be like the psychic capital of the world. And it's so bizarre, right? Because when you Google it,
Florida.
yeah, it's in Florida. It's kind of swampy, super witchy. But you would think that maybe Salem or New Orleans has a bigger history of that kind of modality. But what it was just in the 1800s, there was a spiritualist camp that was developed there, which was all religions, and psychic mediums were like the priests and priestesses. So they would get up and do the lecture. And every house that was in the neighborhood was a full on practitioner's home. So there was someone who was a pet psychic, there was another person who specialized in crystals and Reiki, and then my mom, she did cards and also energy sessions with lots of crystals. And so we really got involved into this little community. And it wasn't until I was 9 years old that our neighbor, Una, who was from Africa, actually taught me tarot. And that's the deck that I use today. So I'm just to give you a little bit of the math, that's 9 and I'm 40. I'll be 45 this year.
Wow. Yeah, and I've actually seen your deck. Like, you still have that deck.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Like, I don't know anything that I've kept up with for that long.
Yes, and it's fully intact. All 78 cards are still there. I don't know how I kept it. I mean, I treat it as if it's like a child or something that belongs to me, like it's always in my purse or near me. Like I try not to let people touch it. it's one of
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if and when it ends up in like a museum or just some type of like holistic realm of place that you would find that deck there because it's just very sacred.
Hey, y'all, it's Terri. You know, transformation doesn't happen by accident, it's a daily practice. And Best Self Co gives you the tools to live with purpose. From guided journals to productivity decks, every product is designed to help you dream bigger, reflect deeper, and take aligned action. Visit Best Self Co and use the code Terri for 15% off. Your next breakthrough starts with one small step, and today is a beautiful day to begin.
But the way that I learned tarot was Una. She basically would start flashing the cards in front of me, and kind of like being in art school, she would say, "What does this card mean to you?" And I would just embody it. I would just tell her, "Well, the blue makes me happy," or "I like the woman's face." And she's like, "Go a little deeper. I'm going to tell you what the card says and how does it make you feel." And so I initially started learning that way, which seems kind of backwards, right? You're not actually getting formal education. But I started playing with it with friends. And then my mom found out I was reading at age 9 and she took it away from me. She said, "I really want you to develop this skill set later on in life." I have found now at this age that it feels like suppressed energy. Like it's almost like, "Hey, you've got this gift, but don't show it to anyone because I don't want you to get in trouble or I don't want anybody to judge you or think that you're up to something different." In a way, she was trying to save me from being bullied or, feeling like I was going to be different. But it actually turned out that in school, I was very much bullied and more introverted, more to myself because I just could feel everything. Yes. And so after I got my cards taken away, I just was like, well, let me just play with them on my own, like with you all, and I won't bring them to school. And we started kind of just doing that on a regular. And throughout that journey, my mom taught me a lot about crystals and Reiki and energy work. It kind of took me in a new direction because it was so fascinating and cool to me. And everywhere we went, I was picking up all kinds of crystals and being like, what does this mean? How does this energy hold? What do you use this for? So I was always a very inquisitive child. Fast forward in my 20s, I almost let go of tarot mediumship altogether and really embraced my fashion career. From my 20s to my 30s, I reached the very top in fashion. I lived in New York City and Dallas, and I was a senior executive for Neiman Marcus. So I was working with celebrities and different influencers, styling them and also just styling the windows. It was called visual merchandising at the time. And it took me a really long, long, long time to reach to the very top until I was laid off. And while I was in my 30s, I wanted to reapproach the tarot. So I decided to get continuous education under Gabby Bernstein and also Cindy Gaza, some other psychics that are very well known. And I did take some other courses and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. A lot of the cards and the feeling and the messages that I received were pretty accurate, but they were also my interpretation. It just felt good to get that educational background because even though they're just certifications that I personally have and hold, it feels like an accomplishment and an achievement in some sort of way. And so when I moved to Austin, Texas 7 years ago, I started doing tarot in Dallas and was on a couple reality TV shows. And then when I moved to Austin, was
Wait, what? I did not know that. What shows were you on?
so I was on the Dallas Housewives and also a little reality TV show called The Hair Cult. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Snowy, you better get that IMDb page.
So, and it's silly
I
because the whole way that it started, I was contacted by some producers and they were like, hi, your client Mariana would like to have you on an episode. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I had to like sign all these paperwork and tell them like my readings are confidential, and so if I'm there explaining somebody's love life in a public eye, that could be quite dangerous for me, especially knowing that that particular relationship wasn't at the time the best. There was a lot of family dispute involved. The person who she was with, was older and didn't live in this specific place. And so once I got her approval to fully do a reading in the public eye, it was actually the first time where I was like, oh, this is going to be the real me showing up to everyone.
wow, tell that to your like 9-year-old self,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, exactly. And so it wasn't really until I moved to Austin that I really got into more of the holistic like field because wellness is such a big part of this community and big city. I mean, you could throw a rock amongst all the yoga studios and sound healers and trainers, but at the same time, we need all of them. Yeah, we need all of them to collectively raise our vibration and just heal the world, heal each other. So that's when I decided to go through yoga teacher training with Wild Heart Yoga, which is where I met Elise, and obviously some other certifications and trainings with sound healing. And we started just going on international retreats together. And I was honoring and focusing on the tarot part and a little bit of sound to fast forward now where I'm teaching and doing other international retreats. And I'm just in awe at the journey that I've been on because it just felt like a really hard path, a very judged path.
Wow. I have so much to say, and like I want to go back to a couple of these places, but to those of you that do listen to every episode, I met Snowy through Elise, who I originally went to for some work, spiritual acupuncture. Now she's become a really good friend. But also, we should also tell them Snowy actually did tarot and sound healing at the launch of Roots and Rebirth. How did I even forget about that? We should have started there.
Yes.
Uh, but she has just been so helpful as I've been, you know, moving over almost the past year and gave me some incredible messages that day from my dad. And it just, yeah, there's a special moment there. But I'd love to go back to something you said early on. And that is about the ability to hold religion and spirituality. I'm also Catholic. And, I think my mom kinda knows I'm into this stuff, but we haven't really talked about it, but I do think when we do talk about it, she will throw holy water on me because she has it, like, in her car and all the places, but, a lot of people think that it's an either or,
Mhm.
but I feel like since I have been introduced to spirituality, I pray more. I am more connected to my body. I'm more connected to source and self and God. And so my prayers start with, dear God, the universe, my family in heaven, my guides, the hell, like, you know what I mean? Like I pray till I joke, I say it's a crew with a K because I'm from Louisiana. But I'd love for you just to share your thoughts on, how you can hold religion and spirituality.
Yeah, that is a very tricky question because it's so controversial still. I think more people are accepting spirituality and they're understanding that there's a great balance between the two. It all comes down to having faith. You know, you have to depend on the higher power, and God is obviously source. And when you have what I like to call my spirit team, which are Archangel Michael, Raphael, my mom, my grandma, all the people that have been in my life and died and are in heaven, you know, I'm channeling in information through them. And the type of work that I lead by is authenticity. So if anybody has ever been scared to get a reading, once they are in front of me, whether it's in person or in camera, they're like, oh, okay, this is good. This isn't a weird person wearing, you know, a turban with crystals coming out, looking into a crystal ball. That's not it at all. It's someone who really has put in a lot of work. And you could tell not just through the experience of it, but just like the lifestyle. I believe in living in purpose, and that's what I help people find. I help them find their truth and their purpose in life, even if that means changing a lot of aspects of their life, or just looking at something from like a totally different types of lens.
Yeah, I love that, and I also wanna point out, like, this podcast is called Roots and Rebirth, and, it's so fascinating when we do talk about the little moments of pivot or the mountains we climb, we usually find a rebirth.
Yeah.
So here you are at 9, wanting to not be so suppressed. It leads you to learning tarot. Again, you're in school, you're getting bullied, and you end up on a reality show, doing this work, but also you got laid off, in the fashion world, which was a job you loved, and also following your mother's footsteps. And you have this rebirth into doing what you're doing now all over the world, helping people. It is so incredible. And even, you've helped me through your readings, but I recently went through your tarot reading class where, you educated me on what the cards mean, how you use them. And as you were telling your story, I was just thinking about it. I've been just doing readings for family and friends, and I haven't really memorized the book. What I've been doing is looking at the card and really asking for messages and like leaning in,
Mhm.
sharing them with them, and then going to the book to read the book. And it is fascinating how it's the same thing. I'm
Yes.
like, how did I know this?
Yes, and it has been such a full circle moment with us, because I can remember very clearly your launch of this podcast and how many people showed up for that, and just like all walks of life, but the most meaningful, heartfelt people that were there. And then you show up to my intro to tarot course, you know, just like a couple years later or a couple months later, and I'm thinking, this is so beautiful, and thank you so much for supporting me, and also just this craft, gift, and ability that I also agree with Elise that we all have access to. You know, we all have access to intuition. I think when we practice it more and when we really lean into trusting it, that's when we start developing extra sensories and gifts that we can feel confident in sharing what it is that we've learned. And oftentimes, at least when I'm pulling cards daily for myself, I'm like, I don't know that this necessarily resonates for me. But as I go into the wild, I run errands, I run into people I know, and I'm like, that message was for
Oh,
you.
wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. But I have been amazed. And even, one day I was pulling for David, my partner, and
Mhm.
I asked for a message that we needed for the week, and was anxious about something, related to our family structure for that week. I was doing something for the first time, and I he pulls the card, but it was a message for me. So it's so funny how the cards
Mhm.
even help you in that way because, what there's times when I am not, giving myself a message or leaning in and feeling it. He is the one that can give me the message that's most in alignment with what I need to hear. And there he is, he's pulling the card and
Yeah.
it's supposed to be his card, but it's for me. So it's just they're so powerful. And I wanted to say thank you
Oh,
for telling people that this work also isn't about a turban and a crystal ball because I think of Miss Cleo, was that her name?
yes.
From TV? If you're old enough,
Yeah.
there was a 800 number you could call Miss Cleo, a psychic, and she would give you a reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your work is not like that.
Mhm.
You've told me some powerful stories. I saw you the week of or the week after Camp Mystic,
Mhm.
which when everything happened, I was out of the country. I was in can't even remember what I was on some beach somewhere learning how to surf. Maybe it was Costa Rica. And the grief that I felt for the families because I would go to Facebook and it was someone I knew whose child's friend passed,
Mhm.
or it was someone I knew who kid had just came back from that camp the week before. Because we live in Austin and everyone in Austin sends their kids to camp within a 2 or 3 hour radius, there were so many ties to Camp Mystic. And if you're not familiar with Camp Mystic, it was an awful incident that happened around the 4th of July, where there was flooding that occurred very quickly overnight, and it impacted a girls' camp, and a lot of lives were lost that weekend. Adults, counselors that were high schoolers, and little kids. And so you got a phone call asking you to help.
Mhm.
So I'd love for you to tell that story about what happened when you answered.
Yeah, that period has left a scar in my heart. I'm trying very much not to cry. I actually had to shut my business down for about a month and a half after I was just volunteering, working. It started off, I had a regular call with a young lady from Austin who said that she had to take off for the weekend to help support her parents because they were impacted by the flood. But luckily they were still alive, and it kind of brought some attention, like, oh wow, this is really going on, because like you said, we were all doing our things, it was holiday week, and so we turn on the news and here we are listening and watching this devastating news. From that reading, my phone just started buzzing and ringing, text messages galore. And what's really crazy is when I first moved to Austin 7 years ago, I only knew two people. One person was a guy that I went to college with, which we're still really good friends. He was married and now is a firefighter. And then another girl that I used to just kind of hang out with. So I only had two friends when I first moved here, and then it was the pandemic. Well, that guy friend, which I'm not going to mention his name just for confidentiality, he started sending me videos, and they were very, very hard to look at. I had to delete them off my phone because he was like, I'm volunteering. There's a lot of firefighters volunteering from Austin. Can you help us with any psychic ability in terms of trying to find certain children that are still missing? And my pit dropped because I used to so when I used to live in Dallas, I would go to Arkansas in my fashion career and different, like, seven other states. And there was a missing girls case, which I was a part of, but it was something that I knew that I didn't want to do ever again because it took such a toll in myself and in my body. And it's a full-time job. And in order to work with the police department, you almost have to work with them full time. And it was just something that I was passing through that at the time I said, okay, I think this person is someone that the girl knew. Check her routine. And anyways, long story short, they did find the girl, but unfortunately she had passed. And so
Wow.
this experience with Camp Mystic triggered me because it reminded me of the time where I had to pretty much stop everything that I was doing to basically be of support. And I wanted to be of support. So within that time period, there were a couple people that reached out for just readings. At this point, some of the people already knew that they lost their child or significant other or pet. And it was very heavy. It was grief related. And if you go to my website, you will see that I have a grief portion just because I take grief very seriously. I know you and I have both been through tremendous amount of grief by losing a parent, and it's just really hard to navigate through. But in this particular case, there were a couple people that were driving into Austin because they wanted to meet me in person. And it was at that period that this woman brought pictures and like objects of her partner that she had lost. And she was screaming uncontrollably in a coffee shop. And I didn't know how to calm her down and also be of support. And so there was times where I had to kind of walk her outside because everybody was staring. And in that moment, my therapist, she had known that I was working with a couple of parents. She wanted to give me a sound session. And so during that sound session, I started to break down in tears, hysterical. Like my mental health is shot. I can't believe that that this is the visions that I'm getting. We were able to help two children locate where they are, which was incredible. Meaning me and my guides. And with that being said, my therapist was like, you know what? I want to sublet my office to you so that you're not meeting these people in public spaces because it's not a sacred and healthy container. And at that moment, I was incredibly blessed and honored and like, wow, I've always dreamt of an office space that was like a therapist place where you can lock the door, there's tissues, we can be here, I can cry with you. But unfortunately, at that point, I had already made a public announcement that I had to turn away business for about a month and a half. While I was volunteering to help support the floods and the victims, I guess I started just losing a lot of money. I had bills still had to be paid. I didn't put any GoFundMe. I didn't think it was necessary, but I had to kind of restructure how I take businesses. So I started just doing virtual only, and I was limiting it to like 1 or 2 people a day, where I'm used to working nonstop 7 days a week, 4 to 5 people. It just, since that period, I got to be completely honest, life has become really, really heavy and tragic, not just with the mystic, but with like global things that are happening. And I've gone back to doing in-person readings half of the time. But I have to say that my days have felt heavier than ever. And I'm having to do less because it's a lot on my emotions.
Yeah, I'm so happy you talked about that because sometimes people don't think about the toll it takes on you. And you actually kind of like said this really quickly, but you found two children that were still alive. And if I recall correctly, the flood was on a Friday and you found them on a Tuesday. So like what a powerful gift. And I don't think that people really understand the work that you do because all they think about are carnivals and Miss Cleo,
Yeah.
right? But we also don't understand when someone shares their gift with you, there is a toll. So the toll that it took on you and your physical and mental health is no different than what we see Chappelle Roan going through right now with what she's trying to navigate by becoming a celebrity, but still wanting privacy and navigating that,
Mm,
And so it's a reminder that when we call in our gifts and we ask for our gifts, that we also think through what do we need to support ourselves
mm,
and how do we structure things so that we can just maintain the things that are sacred to us. Because I've learned that lesson like so many times on my own. Recently, David, my partner, and I just became a blended family and moved into a home together. He has a 4-year-old daughter and a 10 and a half-year-old stepdaughter. And I just couldn't see friends for like a month. And people are texting me saying they want to meet, that they're down. They really just need my
yeah.
energy. And I'm sparkly smart, but sometimes we don't think that being sparkly smart comes with a cost because people I might not be giving energy intentionally, but people might be receiving.
Yeah.
So they might just want to be around someone because they feel good, right? But so I told David, I was like, I can't call them back. I can't text them. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because I need all of me for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going through a transition, a huge transition. I have a car seat in my car. I'm almost 48. I never thought I'd have a car seat.
Oh.
Let me digest one thing at a time. But for you, it's for people, for stories, sometimes tragedy, sometimes bad news in a day.
Mm.
And so I love that you've thought about how to, restructure your business so that you can serve and thrive because those two things shouldn't be separate. They should be, congruent or at least working parallel.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging and I totally get where you're at. It's a different unit now that you have and different energy source that you need to provide and also young ones that are being influenced by you, which I think they're going to have the best life because of that. And I just want to just say that I don't consider myself a hero. I think if anybody was a hero, were the firefighters that really donated their time and worked, and just a couple of them that followed the direction of just look up in a tree versus down. A lot of people were just looking at surface
Wow.
level. Yeah. And alongside with that, there was a lot of things that happened in 2025 for me that were also grief related that I had to, as I was restructuring my business, leave behind things that I really, really loved and enjoyed doing, like working in multiple yoga studios or doing what's called seva, which is donating my time for sound and yoga in wellness centers with homeless people and different types of folks. I just didn't have enough energy to give out. I like to describe it like a floaty that goes in the pool and you haven't like blown it up all year and you're excited about spring break and you put it in the pool and you get on and it's like yeah,
That's me
yeah,
now.
that's how I felt in October of last year. And then since then it's been climbing upwards. And I have to say, now that I have ritual and discipline and less things on my plate, you know, I can be fully present in the one yoga studio that I work at. I could be fully present in the 3 retreats that I do a year. I could be fully present in my marriage, which is so important to me. And also with the fact that I still want to continue this line of work. I'm not done. If anything, I'm just getting better and stronger. But you know, there does have to be a time where you're like, all right, like who's going to get the best version of me and what is it going to take to get there personally?
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to share a story with everyone before we close, but you do your tarot work and you share so much with people. You might tell someone when they're going to have a baby or when they're going to have a change in their career or find love. And you found yourself in a situation where you were looking for love and your psychic and tarot reader on the other side hooked you up. You got to
Oh,
tell people how you found your man.
oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I'm trying not to cry this episode. This is a deep one, deep and personal. Okay, yes. So I have this tendency of going after the bad boys. I'm just going to say that, you know, musicians, tattoos, all the things. And my mom has just been like, look, you've got this intuition, this gift. Why are you choosing these types of people? They're not good for you. Although I'm not saying musicians and people with tattoos are not. I just was not clear into what I wanted in life, right? And the more that I aged, I was 40. I went to go visit my mom in Florida, again, in that little pink house that my dad's still at right now. And I gave her my phone and I said, you wanna find my man? Here are the online dating platforms and you have full access to them. You can go in, message them, I'll give you my passwords. And my mom spent 2 days. I went surfing. I went to the crystal shops. I hung out with all the psychics. It was like the best life ever. And then I showed up to my mom's house and she goes, I found your soulmate. And she shows me this picture of this man who I had seen before. I said, no way. How did you find him? And she said, well, he's living in New Jersey, working in New York. He's an architect and he's a little artsy. He has a couple little tattoos. That's great, right? I said, I've seen him in Austin. And he declined me, meaning he swiped, I don't want her. And I swiped, I do. And so she said, well, he did talk about it. And so at this point, she was having multiple conversations with him.
Oh my God.
And by the way, his whole family knows this was a story that we did announce at our wedding because nobody really could figure out how we found each other. And she had asked him, like,
Oh my God.
why didn't you swipe yes for me? And he said, I thought you were a bot. Because who puts professional photos in a dating app website? And I'm like, me, I want to look beautiful. And also, I want everyone to know that I do tarot because if this is a non negotiable for you, I can't change my life for someone. And believe me, I went on so many dates where, you know, past the second date, they're like, you're amazing. We love you, but you can never meet my mom. And so that really that really tug a little hole in my heart because I was like, why would I be able to meet your mom? I'm amazing. You know, I'm a good person. I'm a good human. And so finally I had to admit to him, hey, this isn't a game. I actually really do like you, but you were actually talking to my mom. So he decides to get on a Zoom call with me and sees that I'm a real person. And he's like, okay, this is really weird. And also, like, I'm going to come see you in person. So he flies from New Jersey, by the way, where I was born, which is crazy.
I don't think I knew that. That's crazy.
He was living in Jersey City, and I was born in North Bergen, so not too far away from there. And he had specifically said, I will never date another Jersey girl because they kept catfishing him and gaslighting him and, you know, those type of terms where he would go into the city in New York and be at the restaurant and nobody would show up. It was a very sad, gosh, I hope he doesn't mind I'm saying this, but anyways, here we are.
Hey y'all, Terri here. You know I believe in soul work that sticks. And that's why I've partnered with Lumenkind to create my very own mindful mark packs, Movement Maker, and the Great Knee Set. When you're moving through loss, leading a movement, or just needing to pause with purpose, there's a mark for that. Head to lumenkind.com and use code Terri15 for 15% off. That's LUMENKIND.com and code Terri15 for 15% off. Let's wear our intentions and walk in purpose every day.
So he comes to Austin and I just am smitten. I'm like, wow, he's so cute and so nice and quiet. And he's, very intuitive. He's a Scorpio, all the things. And then about 4 months go by where we're just, kind of pen pals. And then he tells me that he's moving. And he's moving to Austin for work, not for me. He was able to get a job here. And that's how our romance started. Since the day that he moved, we never spent a day apart. And he is my soulmate. I've done natal chart readings for him. I've had other astrologers just to double, triple check to see if they see something. They're like, you've been in 5 past lives together. And for our honeymoon, which was the most magical experience we've ever had together, we went to Dubrovnik in Croatia, where they filmed Game of Thrones. And we were standing there near a castle in a peacock farm, and we looked at each other and we were like, this is where we once were in the past.
Oh.
And so he gets all of this. He's the type of person that when I met him, very religious background, right? And now he's like going places with crystals in his pockets and just like, saying, I think I'm the psychic one here. He's really tapped into his own sense of style and also his security on decisions that he makes that are both hard and easy.
Oh my gosh, it's just so much fun. I love this story so much. And then you got a message from your mom on your wedding day.
Yeah. So the thing about the tragedy about this is my mom died of stage 4 cancer in 2023. In 2022, November, she came to see my house for the first time and she got to meet Jake. So we moved in pretty quickly. I wanted us to buy a house. He was hesitant because we had only been dating for like 4 months. And I'm the type of person that when I know you can invest in it or not. I'm 40. This isn't like I'm in my 20s trying to figure things out, right? And she met him once and I'll never forget what she said to him. He asked her a question like, how is Snowy when she was little? And she looked at him dead in the face. She goes, difficult. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this was a time where, say all the good things, say, like impress him. We weren't engaged yet. And I have to say that it came from so much truth and like vulnerability and I don't know, cleverness that to this day, Jake kind of jokes and says, you are difficult. And I'm like, look, how about we change the word to complex? I could be complex. But no, she did get to see him and meet him, which she, I feel like she passed knowing that I would be taken care of and okay. And on our wedding day, I had a panic attack. My dad was here helping Jake just put the wedding together, put the tablecloths on the table. And I'm sitting there, in the bride's room with Elise and Mary Beth, and I'm chugging Prosecco. I'm like, I'm having a panic attack because I wanted my mom to be here. This is a big moment for me, for my wedding. And as we were walking down the aisle, I look up and there was 2 cardinals right there, like in a real cardinals. And it was her and her sister. And they're like, girl, we've got first place here. We're front. We're seeing it all. And it just was such a magical wedding with family and friends and an experience and a celebration that I felt was acknowledged in the perfect way.
I love it. So I want you to tell people if they want to do yoga with you, if they want a reading, if they want to take one of your tarot reading classes, how can they find you?
Yes, so you can easily find me on Instagram, Snowy Rodeo Tarot, or even on Facebook. I do have an ask, and normally I don't ask for much, but
Yeah.
this week is Austin Chronicles nomination for Best of. And last year I did make it to the finals for Best Psychic Tarot Reader. For those of you who know me and have had a reading, please nominate and vote Snowy Rodeo Tarot. The link is in my bio. And again, you can find me on Instagram. I answer all DMs. I'm a real person. I take a lot of time, multiple times a day, to reach back out to people and connect. And I'm here always for any type of service, whether it be tarot, yoga, or sound. And I'm happy to go to anyone's home, anyone's event, and create some magic.
Oh, so great. Thank you so much, Snowy. It's always so much fun to see you.
Oh, it's always so good to see you too. And I'm so happy to see you in this place of owning a house, being with the person you love, and just still doing a lot of hard things in life, like working nonstop and just being a public figure in a woman's eye. You have so much power and beauty that I truly look up to you.
Oh, same. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Snowy, thank you for sharing your wisdom and story with such openness. What I appreciate most is the reminder that intuition is not something outside of us, it's something we learn to remember. Your life reflects what is possible when we honor our roots, trust the sacred wisdom within, and allow healing to guide the rebirth. If you're listening and you're in a season of searching, remember this: clarity does not always arrive as a noise. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper, a nudge, a knowing you cannot explain but cannot ignore. And if you need help, just call someone like Snowy. But you should always root into what is true, rebirth through trust, and let your inner wisdom lead you home. Hey, y'all. Hey, before I go, a reminder that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not professional advice. If you need medical, legal, or mental health support, please consult a qualified professional. Be sure to subscribe and follow Roots and Rebirth podcast. You can find me at Terri R. Broussard and movementmakercollective.com. Until next time, it's Terri R. Broussard. I'm cheering you on.